I carried my cup into the breakfast nook and sat by the window. The table was already dressed. Sliced fruit in a crystal bowl, yogurt in a porcelain dish, honey with its golden spoon. The housekeeper had left them there before running errands, as if to remind me that even eating was not an act of choice, but of design. I lifted a strawberry, tasted its sugar, and watched the pool shimmer in the distance. It sparkled like an advertisement, glossy and detached from anything resembling life. My phone chimed. A reminder: dress fitting at 11, luncheon at 1, call with the event planner at 4. Each line on the screen read less like a schedule and more like a script I had been assigned. At the bottom, my own edition blinked back at me. Smile 19. I typed it months ago as a private joke, but jokes lose their flavor when they become truth. Smile for the cameras. Smile for the wives. Smile for Victor when he remembers to look at me. I found his note on the kitchen island, another apology without words. Early board call. Don't wait up tonight. V. His handwriting was bold and neat, impatient with curves. He used to draw a heart. Now, just a single letter. I ran my finger across the paper, not because it mattered, but because some part of me still wanted to feel touched by him. On my phone, the news app flashed. Eleanor Group shares surge after securing European defense contract. I didn't click it. I already knew what I would find. His photograph, his jaw sharp and confident, his smile narrow, always implying victory. Reporters would call him a visionary. Investors would call him fearless. And me? I was the footnote. His wife, unnamed, described only as elegant or graceful. Sometimes I wondered if they even believed I had a voice at all. I left the breakfast table and wandered the corridor. Paintings hung on the walls, abstract swirls of color chosen not by us but by a consultant who promised that art could build prestige. Each canvas cost more than a car, yet none told a story. They were just things, expensive silence. When I passed his study, I stopped. My fingers brushed the brass handle, cold and firm. That room was a fortress without locks. He never said I couldn't enter, but the weight of his presence lived in the walls, warning me away. The last time I crossed the threshold, he looked at me as though I had stepped into a sacred ritual I couldn't understand. Since then, I'd learned to keep walking. In the bedroom, the wardrobe loomed like a museum exhibit. Dresses lined in colors and seasons, obedient soldiers waiting to be deployed. I pulled out a navy sheath, considered its severity, then replaced it with a gray one. Neutral, diplomatic, safe. Looking in the mirror, I saw a woman who appeared composed, elegant, ready to host. But beneath the fabric, I felt like fog, shapeless, waiting for light to burn me away. I practiced my smile. Chin tilted slightly, lips curved just enough, eyes softened. I practiced until it no longer looked like me. The driver was late, so I decided to walk. The avenue stretched wide, lined with boutiques and cafes where people sipped lattes under parasols, tiny dogs in seasonal sweaters at their feet. Every storefront gleamed with glass and brass. Every passerby wore the same curated ease. It was as if the entire city had been designed for people like Victor, people who wanted the world polished and obedient. At the boutique, the seamstress circled me, pins glinting between her fingers. The owner fluttered about with stories of rare lace woven in a village where time itself slowed. I lifted my arms, turned on command, played the mannequin they needed me to be. They praised my figure, my posture, my skin. Compliments delivered like transactions. I smiled, nodded, and disappeared into the role. Later, back home, I stood at the kitchen island and ate lunch straight from the counter. Yogurt and honey, nothing more. The silence tasted heavy, as though it, too, had weight. I opened my laptop and worked through the tasks Victor would never see. Confirmations, seating charts, polite emails drafted in careful tones. A museum director requested a donation. The charity chair begged for help with her speech. I wrote the words that others would speak, stitched together events that Victor would take credit for. My hands did the work, but my name was never spoken. By mid-afternoon, a van arrived. Men in black polos carried towering arrangements of flowers, stems bound like prisoners. The event planner arrived next, eyeglasses sharp, clipboard firmer than her smile. "We're proposing warmer lighting in the foyer," she explained, "to make the transition from daylight feel like an embrace." An embrace. That word stung. We walked the house together, her speaking of focal points, sight lines, color, harmony. I offered opinions that sounded like approvals, suggestions that could be mistaken for agreement. This was my skill, guiding without leaving fingerprints. When she left, the house sagged into silence again, as though even it was exhausted from pretending. The club sits on a hill that pretends to be a view. From the terrace, the city looks arranged, the river like a silk ribbon, the towers like chess pieces, the sky a polished dome no one can touch. A man in a white jacket opens the door for me and says my name as if it were a reservation. Inside, the air is cold with expensive air conditioning and the quiet clatter of silver against china. This is where perfection comes to dine. They're already gathered around a long table dressed in linen that drapes like evening gowns. Gemma waves me over with the soft authority of someone who's learned to command without raising her voice. She runs a foundation for children's literacy and has never been photographed holding a book. On her left is Alina, who owns 3 houses and 1 secret. Opposite sits Frances, whose bracelets always arrive a fraction of a second before the rest of her. There are others, satellites to the same star, proximity to power, arranged like flowers that refuse to wilt. "Sophia," Gemma says, air-kissing both cheeks. "You look luminous. Compliment as calibration. My dress is approved. I have satisfied the color palette. I needed the sun," I say, taking the empty chair they've left between Gemma and a woman I don't know. The newcomer wears her hair like a thesis and introduces herself as Miriam, in strategy, which might mean anything and probably means everything. Menus arrive, heavy as manuscripts. The waiter describes specials in a voice that could convince the sea to be still. The conversation starts cautiously: travel, schools, renovations before finding its favorite riverbed, reputations. "Amazing news about Eleanor," Frances says, bracelets chiming. "Defense contracts are, what's the phrase? Recession-proof. It's the optics that matter," Miriam adds, dabbing the corner of her mouth, though we haven't eaten. "You can sell almost anything if the narrative feels benevolent." Everyone looks at me, kindly, curiously, like I'm a candle they expect to keep burning. I smile. The one I've practiced, the one that says, "I am gracious enough not to gloat and wise enough not to deny." Victor cares about the work, I say, which is true and also incomplete. He thinks in long arcs. "Men like arcs," Alina murmurs, eyes bright. "They like to believe there's only one direction." Laughter beads around the table, light and easy. The waiter pours wine. I don't plan to finish. Plates arrive. Leaves that look too perfect to have grown. Fish arranged in lines that feel like a metaphor. We eat like we speak. Small bites, careful, pretending not to be hungry. Gemma leans closer. "Are you still hosting the museum gala?" she asks. "They say Victor's opening remarks will be decisive." Decisive is his favorite adjective, I say. My tone is warm enough to be friendly and cool enough to be safe. "Yes, I'm hosting." "Your seating plans are legendary," Frances says, which is a compliment disguised as a test. "How do you decide who sits near whom?" I listen for the unfinished sentence, I answer. People open up when they think their story is about to be completed. "Spoken like a novelist," Miriam says, and I feel something in me jolt, like a chord struck accidentally. The word has dust on it. Once, I tried to write in cafes, convinced that stories could be harvested like figs if I waited under the right tree. I set the memory back in its box and fold the lid. The conversation shifts. Someone's daughter has discovered sculpture. Someone's son has discovered a way to make money appear from numbers. There's a rumor about a hedge fund unraveling, and the art that will hit the market like fallen fruit. There's a charity gala that needs a bigger donor list and a smaller conscience. We stitch the city with our voices, and the thread is gossip, and the seam is invisible, and the garment is a dress no one admits to wearing. Do you ever miss it? Alina asks suddenly, as if we are alone. Whatever you did before you became this? Her question hovers, startling the table into stillness. For a heartbeat, I'm back in a cramped flat that smelled of old wood and hope. Morning light spread across cheap curtains, the kettle singing, a blank page that didn't frighten me yet. Before Victor, after Victor. A line so clean it could be cut glass. I could give the answer we all store in our handbags for emergencies. Of course not. I was waiting to become myself. But my tongue refuses it. I miss not knowing the ending, I say. I miss the days when a plan could fall apart and that was allowed. Gemma's mouth softens. For a moment, I see the girl she was, ambitious, a little afraid, tripping into rooms that later learned to applaud. We still don't know the ending, she says quietly. We only pretend we do so the world won't eat us. Speak for yourself, Francis laughs, rescuing the moment. I intend to write my ending in diamonds. We return to safety. Coffees appear, small and dark, the kind that keeps the hand busy while the mind edges away from truth. Someone mentions a journalist sniffing around defense procurement. Someone else mentions a senator's fundraiser and the precise depth of its pockets. My name floats through these currents and surfaces beside Victor's like a second boat tied to the same dock. I nod. I glide. I don't drown. When the check arrives, there is choreography. Cards, smiles, the delicate violence of generosity. Outside, the sun has shifted, the river bright and indifferent. We disperse like well-behaved confetti, measured, biodegradable, leaving no mess. Miriam lingers at the door with me. Up close, she smells faintly of pepper and paper. You listen more than you speak, she says. That's power, if you want it. I'm well trained, I answer. Training is what someone else gives you. Power is what you decide to keep. She smiles, a private, precise smile, and steps into a car that knows where she's going. I watch the city breathe. Somewhere, Victor is in a room that has no windows because glass is a weakness. Somewhere, men say his name with the same weight they give to money. I adjust the strap of my bag and feel the outline of my phone, the small, cold rectangle that keeps the world near and far at once. There are 4 messages from the event planner and a news alert with Victor's face framed by headlines. I don't open either. As I walk to the car, a moth flutters against the club's lantern, frantic for a light that will undo it. I pause long enough to cup my palm around the glass. For a second, the moth rests, stunned by shade, then slips away into the afternoon. I don't know why that feels like mercy, but it does. That night, the house was still, as if every room had agreed to keep my secrets. Victor had gone to bed hours earlier, his breathing heavy, his body turned away. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, every thought louder than the silence. The image of Miriam's smile haunted me. Training is what someone else gives you. Power is what you decide to keep. Her words played in my mind like a riddle I couldn't solve. I rose quietly, wrapping myself in the silk robe that whispered against my skin, and padded barefoot through the corridor. The study door was closed, but not latched. A thin bar of light spilled across the polished floor, beckoning. My hand hesitated on the handle. I told myself I would only peek, only reassure my restless mind. But when I pushed it open, the room greeted me like a confession already written. The folder was still there, lying on the desk where I had first seen it days ago. Black, slim, anonymous, as though it had been waiting for me. My pulse thudded in my throat. each beat asking a question I wasn't sure I wanted answered. I reached for it, fingers trembling, heart pounding just as a sound cracked through the silence. A floorboard groaned in the hallway. I froze. Someone else was awake.